So Troy's swing has come a long way in the last 4 to 6 weeks. Only has a couple things that need some fine tuning. One would be the load, and we need to load our weight back into our back hip, and we need to load our hands so that the bat points to the catcher's feet, and our top hand is in a great punch position. Let's start with his hands. Uh, we need to get disconnection with our hands from our shoulders and make them move independently. Otherwise, the bat travels at the speed of our shoulders rather than the speed of our hands. And when Troy is loading, you can see that his hands are going back in one piece with the shoulders. So we need to get that fixed a little bit. The distance is maintained throughout his load. So you can see as he goes back, his front shoulder goes back and his hands go back the same distance. So basically his hands are frozen in that position. So they're not really loose and they're not quick. That's just going to slow him down a little bit. So what we have to do is get his hands moving independently. So the first thing I think we're going to try in doing that is to load them closer. Start them closer in its stance. Get them into somewhere closer to there so that you could then push them back a little bit instead of just moving them back as one piece with your shoulders. So we'll work on that a little bit. The next thing we have to do is load the hip, and with the no stride approach, basically you need to push our weight to the back by raising our front heel and sitting into our back hip a little bit. You should feel your weight on the inside of your back knee. And what you're doing here is, I think, is going a little too far back. Whoops, I went too far there. When you get to the back of your load, you're almost, your knee in, terrible line. Your knee is basically out over your foot, and that's a little bit too far. We need to keep your knee inside that foot. What that's causing is your hands are way back here. Another bad line. Try it again. There you go. So your hands are going way past your foot, and I think we need to keep them in at your foot. That's more of a bottom issue than a top issue. Your hands are actually in pretty good position as far as that punch position goes in the bat angle, but the whole thing is set too far back because your hip's too far back. So what we need to do is to not push so far back, and we'll see what happens because of doing that. So now we get through the other thing we need to work on is contact. And when we get to contact, bam, right there. If you look, you can see that back heel is not yet over the toe. Okay, so at contact, we need to have all the weight off of that back, but it's late because the hip was loaded back so far. So the hip still has room to travel here. If you see after contact, now the hip is coming in. Now that heel's where it should be at contact. So that's the other thing we're going to work on. And then you pose here sitting in your left hip, which must just hurt after a while. But in any case, those are the things we're going to work on over the next 2 to 3 weeks.